Well, the most universal law out of all the studies that I've come across is actually the law of the one and the many.
Oh, I like this.
And I'll give you some analogies.
Yeah, right.
Gravitation is a radial attractive force from infinite many into 1 over infinity space, a singularity.
Right.
So that's from many to one. But at the same time, radiation, which is its inversion, is going from point source out into infinite radii,
Yeah.
1 to many. So gravitation and radiation, which are two very important forces of the universe, are involved in that. Just like the strong nuclear force is attractive. It's gluons that are holding the quarks together. And the weak nuclear force is actually a separation of electrons or positrons from the nucleus. So one is attractive and repulsive again, towards or away. When you are looking for a relationship and you're dating many people, you're looking for the special one. But once you get the one, you're wondering about the many. So the law of the one to many.
So I'm just a particle.
shows itself in every discipline so far that I've studied. Chemistry is attractive or repulsive. It's nucleophilic or it's electrophilic. And you have every discipline follows that law, whether it be mathematical, integration, or differentiation, or whether it be social, political, where it's monarchies and democracies, or whether you have anthropology, where you have the out of Africa hypothesis versus the multi-regional hypothesis. That is, in every discipline that I've studied, the law of the one and many is the most universal principles. That's moving what I call towards the synthesis and synchronicity of complementary opposites, as Heraclitus described, moving towards oneness, or the separateness, the synthesis going into the diathesis and diachronicity of opposites. So these two mechanisms, Parmenides describe it as the law of love versus strife, or the law of unity versus diversity. But that law is applied, and it can be applied to everything. We have one essence of soul and many personas that we play. And our job is to integrate the personas into oneness so we can have the biggest influence on the manyness. So this law, I've yet to see violated. It shows up in quantity, quality, it shows up in similars and differences, it shows up in every discipline. So that is the most universal law so far, the synthesis and synchronicity of opposites, which is love, to the diachronicity and diathesis of opposites, which is judgment.
Right. And how would you use that in a way that is practical for human performance? Because that is a pretty incredibly deep explanation that some people will be sitting there going, what the fuck did he just say? Well, and there'll be like a small percentage of people who understand, and it's beautiful. It's like a symphony of an orchestra of intelligence. But when you look at it from the practical aspects of I'm a carpenter, or I'm a mum, or I'm just an entrepreneur just trying to make my way. How do we use that in a practical way for human performance, for better quality of life?
Well, that led to my development of what I call the Demartini Method. So let's say you're walking down the street and you meet somebody and you look up to them and you admire them and you're attracted to them and you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you. You assume they have something you don't. You disown what you see in them, you deflect it, and you, in a sense, dismember it from your mind. In the process of doing that, you put them on a pedestal, you put yourself in a pit, you exaggerate them towards an expansion, and you minimize yourself towards a contraction. Expansion, contraction, radius versus gravitas. Then what happens is you can also meet somebody that you can look at and you can despise and resent. And you're too proud to admit what you see in them is inside you. And now you put them down and shrink them and expand you with pride. Those two lead to an inequity of perception. The moment you do, anything that you infatuate with or resent or put above you or below you automatically occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. So your mind has noise in it because what you've done is when you're infatuated, you're conscious of the upsides, but you're unconscious of the downsides. When you're resentful, you're conscious of the downsides, you're unconscious of the upsides. The moment you have a conscious and unconscious split, you divide your mind from one to many and disempower yourself.
The personas.
You put your personas on, which are masks, pride mask or shame mask. This isn't you. This is the false you, the facades that you cover your body and mind with. The moment you do that, you disempower yourself because you're disowning parts of that. The truth is you have everything. You're both hero and villain. You're both saint and sinner. You have both vice and virtue. So putting people up or down instead of putting them in your heart is a disempowering act. So judgment disempowers us and allows us to get to the Peter principle of incompetency of managing our perceptions and actions in life. So by using the law of the one to many, you're going in there and you're owning the parts, whatever you perceive in them. I ask people, go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating the specific trait, action, or inaction you perceive in them, displayed and demonstrated by them within yourself, and identify where it was and when it was and who you've demonstrated to and who perceived you that way, and own all the parts. Then you level the playing field. You're not above or below people. You have now equanimity and objectivity. You're seeing things for the whole, not the parts. And you're re-empowered, and then you've extracted from your misperception a fuel of opportunity to go do something and transcend what you were judging. When you do, you now function from a higher level of performance, a transcendent state instead of an eminently emotional state. And as Warren Buffett says, you can't manage money until you can manage your emotions. And transcending the emotions are what allow you to manage money, manage leadership, manage relationships, manage health. Every area of life is affected by that judgment split and is healed by the ability to integrate and own all the parts.
Because it's one of the things I remember learning from you is when, the moment we judge something, we no longer see it's equal and opposite because we have a bias. And in order to be able to make the best decisions, we need as much information as possible. And by removing bias, by removing judgment, we actually have access to more information of both the negative and the positive side of any equation to be able to make better decisions.
Exactly.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Rae. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends. I would love to hear what you guys think. Thanks for joining us.